my reality was I was using $4,000 worth of narcotics a month, living in my mom's basement. And I had done, like, who's pretending?
Have you or do you struggle? Raise your hand. We are all experiencing the same thing. I needed to get help. I needed to ask for help. And that was probably the hardest part. Once you do it, it's probably one of the easiest things that will support you for the rest of your life.
Men don't have these conversations. We just don't.
By the time we had it all figured out, I had had 2 embolisms in my lungs, either one of which could have been fatal.
And just so everybody knows, we will not be juggling fire. No. And we will not be giving away free food. Free food, come and sit down. On the main wellness stage.
Which one of this panel makes his living as a comedian and host, I wonder?
Hey friends, welcome to, this is our first live taping of the Don't Change Much podcast for the Canadian Men's Health Foundation. My name is Mike Cameron. I'm here with my co-host, Trevor Botkin. And today we are gonna talk a little bit about the things men don't say. So I'm super stoked that we're here. We've got some really cool guests that you've already had a little bit of an introduction to, and you can tell most of us are really, really shy when it comes to these things. And it's interesting, we named this thing the things that men don't say, but as we started having conversations and more discussions, what we found out was this is maybe more about what men don't realize that they need to say. So I'm gonna take a minute and just introduce our guests to you. Our first guest is Chris Gailus. Chris is a veteran journalist and broadcaster and a familiar face to many Canadians through his work as a global news anchor and reporter. More recently, he's also become an advocate for men paying attention to their health earlier, not because he planned to be, but because of what he learned the hard way. And you're gonna hear more about that today. Our next guest is Greg Stewart. Greg is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Paralympic gold medalist in shot put, a speaker, and a community advocate who spends a lot of time working with young people and students. And I know he's really hard to spot in a crowd, so if you get an opportunity, say hi later. He's also someone that spent the last few years thinking deeply about identity, belonging, and what it actually means to build a healthier lifestyle. And this is becoming more and more important to him because Greg's gonna be a dad in about 3 weeks for the first time. Any other dads out there?
I'm excited, but we're getting there. Yeah,
We're getting there. Well, I see it. I got my dad in the audience, so maybe he can give you some pointers.
Which one's Pops?
Which one's Pops? Dad, put up your hand. There's Dad there.
Hey, Dad.
It's his fault.
Our third guest is Toby Hargrave. Toby is an actor, stand-up comedian, longtime champion for men's mental health. I hear that Toby likes to hug 2x4s. That's a bit of an inside joke. His work often explores humor, silence, and the way men learn to carry responsibility, especially as fathers, partners, and friends. Trevor, what do you got?
I am really grateful to be here today and be having these conversations. I think we did a little tour earlier and we heard from a lot of people that generally we need to see men talking more about where they're at. And we've learned that there needs to fundamentally be some more awareness about what we're talking about. Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah.
You were sort of blindsided by some health issues, like everything was good.
Yeah, you're right. And thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this panel. It's not often I'm in a room where I ever feel small, but sitting next to Greg is an example of when that happens. And you're absolutely right. I spent my life as a bigger dude, an athlete, played some college basketball, played rugby at a high level. There's a toughness element to that, and that was a part of my identity. Until, as you pointed out, I got blindsided by a health issue, which in my case was an unprovoked blood clot behind my left knee, which I had no idea what the symptoms of a blood clot were. And by the time we had it all figured out, I had had 2 embolisms in my lungs, either one of which could have been fatal. So figuring out what was going on with my body was a big part of a growth curve over the next several years, and I'm still I'm thankful that it happened, only because I can share my experience with other people to recognize the symptoms of a blood clot. We can talk about that a little bit later too, and to be an advocate for yourself when you get into a health system which sometimes doesn't always know what's going on. You think it will, but it doesn't always know what's going on, and that's kind of what happened in my case.
Yeah, so take us back to that moment when you realized that, like, this isn't just something I can kind of bury my head and pretend isn't happening. Take us back to that moment.
No, you're right. And I was lucky in that I feel like, having been active most of my life, I knew my body pretty well. And I had gone for a run. I'd had a period of inactivity for quite a long time, and I was trying to get myself back into shape. Went for a run. I've done 1,000,000 times. And my left ankle swelled up like a balloon. And I thought it was weird, because normally that would be like, okay, I tripped over something, or I stepped in a pothole or something. Nothing happened on the run, but I knew I had a doctor's appointment the next couple of days, and I thought, okay, I'll just leave it, and I'll talk to the doctor in a couple of days and see if there's something to it. Well, the doctor canceled that appointment, and rebooked it for the following week, so I just let it go. About 2 days later, I woke up, I went to bed and feeling like sort of cold, sweaty, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I have a flu. And that was the first of the embolisms happening to me. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I'm glad we have ladies in the audience too, and I'm not throwing my wife under the bus at all here. But I woke up going, I feel like I can't breathe. I'm in a lot of pain right now. And she said, lovingly, calm down and take some Tylenol. So I did. Yeah. Yeah. Good. It was good advice. It was good advice. I took a Tylenol. I calmed down. I fell back asleep, and I woke up the next day, and it was fine, and I went to work. But the exact same thing happened the next night, and it was that night where I was like, I got to go to the hospital. Did I go right then? No, but I went the next morning, and that's when I went in there and got into the health. That's kind of when it started. The reality set in that this was something more than normal. So, yeah.
That's incredible. I'm glad they were able to figure that out, and I'm glad you calmed down.
Yeah.
And went to the hospital right away.
Still calm to this day about it, but it's been a learning curve. And the swollen ankle, the pain in the upper side, the inability to breathe. I mean, these are classic blood clot symptoms that I described to the emergency room nurse, intake nurse, and the ER doctor. Neither one of them gave me the blood test that would have confirmed a blood clot and embolism at that time. So I didn't know. She just said, "Are you stressed?" And I'm like, "Of course I'm stressed. I'm in a lot of pain. I got a high pressure job. I got to try to raise a boy. We all know the things." And she just patted me on the shoulder and said, "Try to take it easy." And away I went. And then, thankfully, and I'll wrap this up quick, I went to the doctor a few days later, and I described to him what had happened to me, because I still hadn't had, I'm not on blood thinners. Nobody has diagnosed me with a blood clot. I've had 2 embolisms. Again, could have been fatal. And the doctor said, "Well, did they give you the D-dimer blood test?" I'm like, never heard of it, right? I didn't know what that was.
I'm just learning about it now.
Yes. If any of these symptoms show up, ask for the D-dimer blood test. He's like, immediately go to the lab and take this test. And so in that moment, my life was still normal. When the doctor called me back at 7:30 Sunday morning and said, "Go immediately to the hospital. You have serious medical condition," that's when everything changed.
I bet that was a super chill drive in the countryside to get to the hospital.
Very easy. Now I was telling Jane to calm down.
Yeah. Greg, you came into a necessary moment where you needed to expand your horizons a little differently.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, does anyone here have a job? Raise your hand if you have a job. Awesome. I'm curious, do you attach your identity to that job? Right, that's the problem. And that was the problem I had, is I'm an athlete, and majority of my life I've been an athlete, And at one point when I finished playing university basketball,
Got that in common.
we got a good team here. Yeah. When I finished playing ball, but I had to finish school, my marks just went downhill because I didn't have the structure, I didn't have the support that I thought I needed in order to finish school because I got it in basketball. And so then shortly after playing ball, kind of like starting my real life, graduated university, I was fired from like 2 jobs in a row. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't think I'm doing anything. But what I was struggling with was attaching my identity to something versus attaching it to myself. Like, who am I? What am I doing? And how am I portraying myself in this world? And we all do it, you know? And so I was like, I keep getting fired and I'm getting more and more mad at other people for it. Maybe I'm actually the problem, right? And like, if we were to dig further into this, I'm also disabled and I'm 7'2" as well. So just throwing that out there. I'm a very tall, handsome, disabled guy.
I can confirm that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's important to note because someone with a disability wants to fit in. Because even though, yes, I know I look a little bit taller than most of you, I want to fit in like all of us here want to fit in. But it's just kind of exaggerated a little bit more because I know I don't look like all of you, right? So now I'm even attaching that to it. Long story is I needed to get help. I needed to ask for help. And that was probably the hardest part, right? The amount of talks I do at schools, and when I say, hey, it's really important that we ask for help, and kids are like, yeah, like asking for help is one of the hardest things, especially as adults. But it's probably, once you do it, it's probably one of the easiest things that will support you for the rest of your life. And I did group therapy. I've been working with a counselor now for like 15 years. You know, I see her regularly. My wife and I have a couples counselor as well. So like, we're always trying to not get better, but just try to understand how we look at ourselves and how does that show up in our life, right? And from kind of that point on, I was talking about this yesterday. Okay. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to make a point. I have 2 doctors. I have 2 doctors because I realize that I'm disabled. And now that I can recognize myself as a disabled person, I've been able to join national teams, I've won medals, I've done all this stuff. But now I have an incredible team around me, right? Yes, I have my family doctor, but I also have my team doctor. Do you know how long it takes to get see a psychiatrist in Canada right now? Almost over 3 years. I saw one in 3 weeks, right? And again, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to point the fact that once I owned the fact, owned who I was, all the doors opened. Right? I was able to see, oh wow, I'm disabled and I have all of these things available to me. And I took them on. Right? And since then, I would say that I have a lot of love in my life. Because 1, I love myself. And for anyone out there that says, I will love this person forever. But if you look at yourself in the mirror and say you can't love yourself, what makes you think you're loving them? Because if you don't own it, you can't give it.
Greg, that's such an important piece. You know, the acknowledging the awareness piece, owning who you are, finding that team around you and getting that support. What resonates for me, you know, we've talked a little bit about the athletics piece, and we know that when it comes to physical fitness, as men in particular, we know that it's point in time and it requires maintenance if we want to stay fit. You know, we can work hard, we can get fit, but if we want to stay fit, it requires some maintenance, and having that team around you is such a critical piece. Toby, I know for you, it wasn't kind of sort of one moment of crisis that shifted things. It was more an awareness and awakening over time, if you will, and you hit that 50 mark. So what was it that shifted for you?
You know, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've traveled the country from coast to coast, entertaining people top to bottom, left to right. One of the things that I really walked away with how much we all have in common that we don't really talk about all the time. We feel so alone, so different from each other, Nobody can understand what we're going through. And this is male or female, it doesn't matter. And we feel isolated sometimes. And what I found was going across the country, didn't matter what city I was in, I could make fun of your hockey team with the same jokes I could make fun of my hockey team with, and you still sounded funny. I could talk about my grandfather and how silly he was, and you would laugh because you had the same grandfather. I could talk about my insecurities, and you could identify because you had those same insecurities. And it slowly hit me in two parts. One was, now we aren't separated by our differences. We're not separated by our uniqueness. We're separated by our silences. We don't talk about what's going on in our lives, and you might find some familiarity in the person sitting beside you at the bar or on the bus that you just strike up a conversation with. For me, it became an issue of, I'm in a business where I talk to people. I communicate every day of my life, but I was still so out of touch with what was going on within me. And I've been seeing a therapist for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And it's not really intense. It's like a buddy I go to see. And I get to talk to him, and we just get to kind of shoot the stuff back and forth. And I caught that one. And we just get to have a chat. And, it was probably about 3 months ago. And he said, dude, you're burned out. And it just floored me in the moment. And it gets me right now. Like, I was wiped out. And if I hadn't had that conversation with somebody, a therapist, a friend, I would never have identified that. And then realizing later, going back even further, I was driving somewhere, I was on tour somewhere, and I'm going up to Coquihalla. And it was one of those days, when you drive up to Coquihalla and you go through every season in about an hour, and it's evil and it's awful. And then some guy in a lowered Honda Civic that sounds like a lawnmower blows by at another 150 kilometers an hour. And I quite seriously thought I was having a heart attack. And my phone isn't working. I can't call anybody. I don't know what's going on. But I happened to talk to a friend of mine at the show that night. I kind of said, I had this really weird thing go on. And the first thing he said was, and he looked at me like I was an idiot, to be honest. And he said, yeah, no, it's called an anxiety attack. It's a panic attack. It was. And I never had that before. And all these feelings that were welling up, it never made sense. And I didn't know that I needed to have that conversation. So just having conversations is really what I discovered. That you find so much more about you through somebody else than you'll ever find out about you just staring in the mirror. Yeah.
Well, and I think a big part of that is just taking the time to reflect, and that's what that forces you to do. When you have those conversations, you take time to reflect on what is coming up. I'm curious, what did burnout feel like?
Just overwhelmed. I'm pretty easygoing for the most part. I like to feel like I'm pretty relaxed. I can handle a lot of stuff. I'm good at segmenting and compartmentalizing in my head. I'm good at staying organized and taking on tasks, finishing tasks. Don't get me wrong, I got a lot of downsides. Ask my wife. But there was a lot of stuff that I could do and I could do well. And I was overwhelmed with the simplest of tasks. I couldn't see my way through a daily event list. Just anything, and if anything went wrong outside of my scheduled idea of what the day would be, it was a gong show. It was a write-off. It was just done. And I'm trying not to eat in the face, but I just didn't feel like me, and I couldn't figure out what was happening, and why is it? And I'm an actor and a comedian. How hard can my life really be? What am I dealing with? And then you sit back and realize, oh, we're renovating. I'm performing live. I'm doing all these different things. I have a career that's taking off. I have 2 children, and I have a beautiful wife, and I have obligations to all these different parts. And you don't realize that everybody has these same things. And when it starts being hard to deal with, it doesn't mean something's wrong, but it means maybe there's an opportunity to check in. And I think I'm so proud of being a part of this, with the Men's Health Foundation and the gentleman here are that so often it's not, men don't have these conversations. We just don't. I'm a 285-pound, 6-foot, I used to like to throw knuckles and do all that stuff that men do, manly men doing manly things. And a conversation was never one of those manly things. Yeah. And that's a huge disservice to who you are, male or female.
Yeah, and that's, for me, that's like part of the problem is what I built into my identity, what was acceptable to be a man, what was unacceptable. I had built a set of shoes for me that were built of lead. And I would compare myself to others and say, well, that person's not stumbling in their shoes and that person's doing really okay. What's wrong with me? And the things I had to come to terms with was, I'm me, these are my issues. And like I heard you say, I have all these challenges that person doesn't, and I'm gonna approach them or I'm gonna absorb them in a way that's unique to me. And I need to do the work to be healthy or get through it. The strongest, bestest car in the universe is going to need its car changed, and it's well changed. And the minute it's done, it doesn't matter how strong you are. We got to take care of ourselves. And I had a huge fear of judgment, of people losing confidence in me, of me losing confidence, what I had left of confidence in myself. I'm out there trying to pretend like I'm some sort of leader. But in the meanwhile, my reality was I was using $4,000 worth of narcotics a month, living in my mom's basement. And I had done, who's pretending? Get serious. If you don't look at the problem and get honest with yourself, you don't have any hope of getting through it.
And kudos to you because, battling addiction, we've all seen what the reality of that is. And to see somebody I get choked up thinking about it. Proud of you.
That is my athletes, and I'm sharing.
Okay, but back to what Toby was saying, taking ownership when we feel like we got great lives, right? And that's not, I think we have great lives and you feel, I don't know, guilty. Yep.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Because what do I have to be upset about? Yeah, but you got to take ownership of that, share it, and talk to guys who are experiencing the same thing, not to feel guilty about all the great things going on in your life, because there are going to be financial struggles. There's going to be disappointments at work, health issues that come along that blindside you. You got to talk to somebody. Yeah.
And that's what strength looks like now.
Yeah.
And that's it in the next show. Thank you.
My brother and I were, I would appreciate that. My brother and I were talking last night on my drive here. And the conversation is, judgment steals love, right? Judgment steals the concept of love. And going to the guilty piece of us, because most men typically feel guilty, right? Because it's supposed to look a certain way, right? It's supposed to look a certain way at home, but then we also have to be the breadwinner, and if we're not providing for the family, well, we're feeling even more guilt because we're not providing for them. But at the same time, it's supposed to look perfect, and we're not supposed to show any of it. And so because we're constantly beating ourselves up and then unaware, we're feeling guilty about beating ourselves up. It's just a plethora of guilt. And that's all it is, and it's cyclical and everything like that. And then on top of it, because we are owning guilt, everyone else around us is guilty. Right? I'm feeling guilty, so you have to feel guilty. Right? And it's just a resentment circle. Right? And it's learning to be like, hey, I don't have to feel guilty anymore. I don't have to feel robbed of love for doing this. Right? One of the biggest things I've ever learned is that I can say no.
That's powerful. Yes. That's powerful.
Right? Hey, Greg, you want to do this for us? Being a big manly guy? No, I do not. I am a big manly guy, but I don't want to do that.
Well,
Right?
I think that's a really important piece. The fact that we can acknowledge all of the good things in our life, we can acknowledge the privilege that we own, we can acknowledge all of these things, but at the same time, and now you're gonna get me choked up, dude. At the same time, life can suck a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like on the outside, everything can be wonderful, everything can be good. I could have all the things, I can have the advantages. I can be in a great position. I got a roof over my head, I got folks that love me, I got lots of people surrounding me, but also I can be struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay.
Sure.
And that's really important to understand. And I think, I don't know, for me, what I see in the men that I work with, that is a big piece of what stops men from having the conversation. Because, again, to your point,
Yeah.
who am I to feel shitty about where I am?
Right.
Because I've got all these things. But both things can be true. I can have all the
Yeah.
things and I can still feel lousy.
That's right. And need help to deal with that.
And to be fair, I mean, these conversations don't normally happen with microphones in front of a group of people. We're having that now, and I think that we're all feeling a certain amount of intensity, and I can feel your support. But these conversations can happen at home. These conversations, for whatever you might look at one of us as being, we're just you. Like, we're just you at a different point in life, and you're having a good day today, and you might be having a bad day tomorrow, or you might have a bad week next year. I don't know. But have those conversations. Don't use a microphone. It's silly. It's a weird way to do it. It is.
We do it loud.
Oh, do you? Yeah. I'm a pretty loud, so I give the kids a microphone. But it's the ability just to say, hey, it's okay. I'm you, you're me. We got something in common. And when I'm feeling like this wonderful energy up here. And it's something different. It's kind of unique.
Can we play a quick game?
Yeah.
Can everyone in this here?
Not basketball.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
sorry.
playing basketball with you.
Can everyone close their eyes?
Okay.
I just want you to close your eyes, and I'm just going to ask you a question. And if you feel that it relates to you, I want you to raise your hand. Have you or do you struggle? Raise your hand. Okay, keep your eyes closed. Have you or do you struggle, or have you ever struggled at one point? Okay, keep your hands up. And for everyone that has their eyes closed, open them and look around the room. We are all experiencing the same thing. And to open up that conversation at home is to say, I'm also experiencing it. Let's have a conversation around it. Because if we're not willing to have a conversation around it, it doesn't matter who you are. You're not going to have the conversation, right? You have to be the leader at home, but you also have to recognize that you're also struggling, right?
Can I just add to that really quick, which is that I realize that, like we're saying, having these conversations, it doesn't have to look like you sitting down with the family saying we have to have a conversation.
Totally.
So let's have this moment right now. Okay, everybody sit. Okay, hey, sit. Sit, I said, sit. Listen, sit. Sit. Okay, we're there. Okay, we're having a conversation. No, it's just talking. It's literally just talking about what your day was like. And if you think about any profound conversation that you've had with somebody, very rarely does it start planned. These things happen spontaneously, and it's about opening yourself up to the environment that you're in. It's not about being best friends or making a new friend. It's about just being in the moment and being somebody and being real and being open to what might come out of it. And yeah.
Well, we were just saying, court cases are solved in the hallway,
Right.
not in the courtroom.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Well, and I think, again, creating the space for men to come together to have these kinds of conversations is so powerful. I'm part of a men's group called Connected Men. My brother Danilo's here today. And that is what we do. We just literally get together and practice feeling as dudes and practice having these conversations for real. Drop the armor, drop the mask, and just get real. The other thing I would say, because I get asked a lot from partners, spouses, my man won't open up. What do I need to do? Patience. Patience, because it takes us a while. It takes us a while to, first off, we don't always have the vocabulary to know how to articulate what's coming up. So we need a little bit of patience and probably a lot more space than you think we might need.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. My partner, and just delightful thing she does is she'll just walk past me and say, these look really tough for you. And then she just walks away. And I'll be like, yeah, they are. Like I just get tough. We don't have to drive into it. She's not looking to fix me. She just wants to see that what comes out of my mouth is congruent to what is on the outside, right? And then she trusts, okay, you know it. You've admitted you know that things are tough. So we're all in agreement and I can go about my way. The next thing is sometimes she'll follow up with, are you talking to your guys about it? And I'm like, yes. And then she knows everything's good. We don't solve everything together because some things, if you're a recovering addict like I am, sometimes she's not going to understand, and she doesn't have the sense of humor required to get through some of the things that come up. But you know, like it came up earlier, as a man, like it felt unmanly to talk like that. But now I look at it like, what's more manly than getting curious, looking at your situation, and reaching out to others to build, like to get that knowledge, to build that support. Leonidas, he took 300 soldiers with him, right?
Yeah.
Look at the damage he did. And so I don't have 300 soldiers, but I definitely have 3 good men around me that I can talk to, I can cry in front of. And I'll tell you, I've never walked out of those situations not feeling tougher. And when my girlfriend asks how my day was, I answer. I don't just say it was fine. I say it was a little long. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I think about it. I think about the response, and I get much more in return.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, a lot of what we're talking about here is men being able to express themselves and being open to talk and being honest about their feelings. But I think the flip side of that too is being a guy that your mates can come to, and to be open on that side of it too, to be able to talk to a guy who's struggling, be present for them.
Yeah, and I think the important piece with that is that you touched on it. We don't need to fix anything.
No.
We just need to be there. We just need to listen.
Yeah.
And we just say, I got you, brother. I got you, brother.
Yeah.
I have this concept that everyone is perfect. Okay, you're all perfect the way you are. The only time you're not perfect is when I choose to judge you, or you choose to judge yourself, right? But I lost my train of thought. I was gonna be a good one. I know I'm like now feeling vulnerable on the stage because I'm like, good line. Shoot,
I was marching.
it was there.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I just talked about being present and being there for.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, it got back on. There it was. It was there. I couldn't quite grab it because my mic's in this hand and I can't grab in the other one. But oh no, did I lose it again? No. Lead by example.
Yeah.
Nikki, you and I had this conversation the other day, and the conversation was about us and our partners seeking counseling. You can only lead a horse to water, but you can't tell it to drink. We're aware of this concept. Same thing applies if you want your partner to get support. You have to be the support, meaning you got to go and get it. If you want somebody to seek counseling and you're not seeking counseling, good luck. Right? Do the work yourself, because when your partners see you changing, they're either going to want to run away from it or they're going to want to join. And you're just doing you and bringing more love in your life. And there's probably a good chance they want more love in your life. So lead by example.
Gentlemen, this is fantastic. We've got about 5 more minutes before we have to clear the stage. So I want to give you guys all one last opportunity. Chris, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So with the physical health piece, what is it? What should you have been looking for, or what do you wish you'd known ahead of time? Oh, that's fantastic. Toby, we got a few more minutes. What have you got?
What about cheese? It's just nice to be here, man. Right? You know, one thing that we've talked about a little bit in having these conversations and showing up for people is that also don't put the expectation that you're going to be the savior. You're not there to fix somebody else. You're there to listen. And sometimes the outcome isn't going to be the outcome you want or the outcome you're hoping for. But that's not why we're there for each other. We're there for each other because it's a better way to be. But you can't always control the situation that happens. And maybe you all have a moment like that. And I had a friend that reached out to me. It didn't work out. But I was there for him when he needed me. And that made a difference. I made a difference. And just give yourself that gift.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece. We talk about that in our group. Be the lighthouse.
Yeah.
You can't steer the ship. All you can do is be the lighthouse. And the beautiful thing is the lighthouse is rooted on solid rock, and it can withstand the storm. And all you can do if you're working with somebody that's struggling is be the lighthouse. Friends, this has been an incredible conversation. We unfortunately have to wrap this up. We're going to keep going. For all of you listening, make sure you tune into the Don't Change Much podcast with the Canadian Men's Health Foundation, because we are going to continue to have these conversations from now until, how long, Ken? Forever. We're going to have these conversations forever. Thanks so much for being here, gentlemen. My pleasure to have you.